Hello and welcome to the Global Dialogue. I'm Shereen Bhan, and today we put the spotlight on the global aviation industry and, of course, India's aviation market as well. I'm in conversation with the CEO of British Airways, Sean Doyle. Sean, thanks very much for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. And it's good to have you back here in India as CEO of BA.
It's fantastic, and listen, thanks for giving me the opportunity to come and talk to you. Yeah, it's been about 8 years since I was in India, but it's an honour to come back as CEO of British Airways because we have a very long history of serving the market here. BA has been around for 103 years, and for 99 of those 103 we've flown to India. So it's great to be out here because I'm here for the launch of a new call centre here in India, here in Delhi, which is a significant investment that we're making in the marketplace as well.
Okay, I'll talk about the call centre in just a bit, but I want to talk about the India market specifically because IATA believes that this is one of the most vibrant markets. You've got a long history and association with India. You complete 100 years in this market. What can we expect now from BA in terms of adding capacity here in India? You're doing about, 56 flights weekly, but only 5 destinations.
Yes, I think we were very quick to rebuild. So I think after the pandemic, we were back up to our pre-pandemic levels very quickly. In fact, we've exceeded pre-pandemic levels now with some additional services. We put a third Mumbai service in September. I think we're always looking for opportunities, whether that's expanding on the existing markets we're in or looking at new routes. It's something that we're monitoring very closely because I think the opportunity and potential of the Indian market is incredible. You can see that domestically, but we also see it economically. Now, for British Airways, it's very exciting because we have a very big diaspora community in the UK.
That's right.
But we also connect, of course, that diaspora community with the United States and Canada through our hub here at Heathrow. So I think, we'd always like to have a leadership position as a European carrier, and I'd be very keen to learn more about how we could shape that in the coming years.
Speaking of your leadership position, let me ask you this in the context of the competitive landscape, which is changing and is expected to change significantly now with the Vistara Air India merger, which should go through by March of 2024. And of course, big plans by even low-cost carriers like Indigo, who are looking at going international. How do you see the market and how do you expect to respond to the competition?
Well, I think what we're seeing isn't a surprise to anybody. I think India has huge potential. I think both in terms of becoming an economic superpower, which we see happening in front of us, but also I think the importance of aviation in propelling, I think, that story. And I think an organic homebred aviation industry has always been there, I think, for somebody to develop. And it's very exciting to see, as you say, Indigo and Air India, really sees that opportunity. So I think with the level of demand growth that we see in the marketplace, that doesn't come as a surprise.
The demand and fleet expansion, and everybody's now looking at ordering aircraft at this point in time, and hopefully some of the issues that we've seen as far as supply is concerned, which got exacerbated through the pandemic, will start to ease as well. You're facing trouble as well when we talk about fleet expansion and deliveries, but what's the outlook, what's the order book pipeline for you given the demand visibility that you currently have?
Yeah, well, I think everybody's been rebuilding after more or less a full shutdown of aviation, and I think from a British Airways perspective, we are resourcing up the airline, and we've had the biggest recruitment campaign in history over the last 12 months. But we now have all of the people we do need to kind of operate our program. In terms of supply chain, yes, that continues to be challenging. I do think that will improve as we get into the months and years ahead. And I think you will see the big manufacturers begin to increase output and capacity. Hopefully they will get there, as quickly as they commit to. But the last 12 months have been frustrating, I think, for airlines and operators.
I would imagine so. But how do you sort of de-risk yourself in a market like this, where it is getting challenging to anticipate when you're actually going to get the deliveries that you factored in?
Well, I think we're part of International Airlines Group, and we're one of the biggest aviation groups in the world. So I think we have the benefit of that group kind of purchasing power, and we have options and we have delivery lines which have been firmed up over the last 5 years that we can draw upon. So I think we're relatively confident in the plans that we do have because they have been in place for quite a while, and we can use those to kind of fund fleet expansion and replacement. I think it's also very important from a sustainability perspective because one of the things British Airways has done over the course of the pandemic is retired older aircraft like our 747s, and we're taking delivery of aircraft like the A350-1000 and 787s, which are much more fuel efficient and much more carbon efficient. And of course, we're seeing those planes fly to India because we have the A350 flying to Mumbai at the minute, which is a fantastic experience and a fantastic product.
So in terms of fleet addition, by 2023 end calendar year end, how many more aircraft are you anticipating bringing in?
Well, I think we'd expect to be back to our fleet count and above it that we were in 2019 by about 2025. But a lot of the aircraft that we are seeing come in will be replacing aircraft that are retiring. So I think it'll be a combination of growth, but also a combination of making sure we're more efficient and more delivering on our carbon commitments. I think also what I would say is we have been restoring capacity both at a group level. IAG flew 95% of capacity in Q1. BA will fly about 92% of pre-pandemic capacity in this year.
You know, speaking about the quarter, I also wanted to get a sense from you on where demand currently stands. It's bounced back very well. In fact, first quarter profit delivered by your parent company. You know, at this point in time, leisure is looking strong. You're back to about 65% as far as business travel is concerned. With China reopening as well, what's the expectation now in terms of demand? By when do you hope to get back to 2019 kind of levels?
Well, I think, you know, we're actually back in a number of markets ahead of 2019 levels. So I mentioned the United States being a key market to connect India with. We're now flying to 31 cities. So we've actually more destinations in the US we're serving than we did pre-pandemic. And I do think that what we are seeing is planes are very full. The mix of traffic is different. A lot of people visiting friends and relatives, a lot of people on leisure. And as you say, business travel is lagging. But I think the effect of those three channels is actually very positive for the industry as we sit here today.
You know, you talked about planes being full. What we're also seeing is prices surging and significantly higher in comparison to what we saw pre-pandemic. Do you believe that there's likely to be any sort of let-up there as far as prices are concerned? I know you want competitive pricing, but you're also worried about costs at this point in time.
Well, I think, you know, we, like everybody else in the business environment, is suffering the effects of inflation, and our input costs obviously go up. Our fuel costs, you've got to remember, are higher as well compared to 2019. And, you know, the economics of running an airline means that you do have to recover some of those costs. I think at the same time, you know, the airline industry is very heavily competed, and I think that maintains competition. And we do see most of the places we fly to, there is an alternative carrier offering competitive fares. But I think we're part of the economic cycle where a lot of the input costs are going up, and I think to be economically viable, we do have to recover, you know, a portion of those costs. Are
you starting to see any ease as far as supply side constraints are concerned? Especially, you know, labor costs, I would imagine, have been a problem and a challenge. Any cost control measures that you know that we see you easing off on at this point in time?
Well, I think we're always looking for ways to be more efficient, and I think, you know, one of the big levers we have is more modern fleet, and that's helping us, you know, be a lot more efficient, because I mentioned oil is actually higher than it was in 2019. So having newer planes that consume less fuel is a very important competitive lever. We're also looking at digital and technology, and we're in the middle of a very significant investment program in our technical capability and our digital capability. And I think that will help us be a lot more efficient in the way we serve solutions up to customers. And I think, look, the industry is very heavily competed, so you're always going to have a very strong focus on unit cost control. And we're always looking at ways in which we can be more efficient, because ultimately, you know, that translates into competitive fares. Yeah,
I would imagine. And talking about digitization, and of course linking that to the call center that's now operational here, which is why you're here in India. You know, in terms of being able to adopt AI, bring AI on board, etc., is that something that you are prioritizing at this point in time?
Yeah, well, look, if I look at what we're doing with our global footprint for contact centres, we have a very significant investment here in India. And we
What's the quantum of the investment?
Well, we've got about 1,400 highly skilled agents. It's our biggest site globally, and we have it in a new facility here in Delhi. But we're also investing in new capability. We have a new telephony system powered by BT, and we've also got much better workflow management systems to flow calls around the world. And then I think we will be looking at technology such as AI to actually make sure that we can give customer solutions far more quickly, and actually in a way that's transformational.
You know, I know that this was an issue that you wanted to address, which was the waiting time for customers, and I would imagine that the call center is going to address that issue. How much do you hope that this is going to drive in terms of efficiency?
Well, I think it will drive a much better customer experience, and as I say, we've some great foundations going in. across all of our call centres globally. And I think, with the things that we are doing with technology, with policies, and also with the way we're digitising the experience so people don't necessarily have to call the call centre in the future, they can self-serve online. I think we will see a step change in the servicing experience for British Airways customers.
Speaking about change, what kind of innovation should we expect as far as the product itself is concerned from a customer's point of view? I know Club Suite has been the thing that you've been very excited about, but in terms of the onboard experience, in terms of innovation on pricing, what are you thinking about at this point in time?
Well, I think if you look at the onboard experience, the Club Suite is, of course, very high profile. But the aircraft that are coming with the Club Suite are also coming with brand new in-flight entertainment systems. We've got more or less unlimited content that people can consume. We're also, I think, investing in much more bespoke experiences. Now, if you look at India, every base that we fly to, we have a local cabin crew base. And that means that we can customise the experience to the local market. We've also invested in a significant improvement in our catering capability in a partnership with Doe & Co at Heathrow. And we actually have the biggest, most modern catering facility in Europe now at Heathrow. We're beginning to see the benefits of a much more tailored catering experience to the markets that we fly to. And as I said, digitisation can really improve the airport experience. The opportunities to self-serve, to customise wayfinding, to give customers, I think, a lot more empowerment over their journey. I think we're tipping the iceberg, and we're investing in the technology to really empower that in the future.
Well, we'll take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. When we return, we continue our chat with the CEO of British Airways, Sean Doyle. Welcome back. You're watching the Global Dialogue. We're in conversation with the CEO of British Airways, Sean Doyle. Talking about the airport experience, and the horrors of what happened in 2022 have been sort of imprinted on everybody's memories, people who were traveling through Heathrow. But do you think that a lot of the issues that constrain, and you were forced to bring in restrictions as well on account of what happened with the airport, do you believe that side of the story has now been addressed and sorted?
Yeah, I think the ecosystem last year was under pressure, not just at Heathrow, but I think at a number of other European airports. And what we had to do really was rebuild what was a very long established ecosystem in the space of about 6 months. And there's a lot of, how would I call it, links in the chain that need to synchronise and coordinate together. And that was very challenging last year. This year, it's a lot better. At British Airways, we've brought 10,000 people in last year. We've another 2,500 have joined in the first 4 months of this year. So I think the resources are certainly in a much, much better place. I think what we all need to do with the ecosystem is make sure that we're training and skilling people up to the level that we historically associate with aviation. And I think that's, very much progressing along the lines as well.
Is that your number one challenge today?
I think it's a challenge, but we're really encouraged at the progress that we're making. And, I think this year's experience will be much, much better than last year's experience. But, busy periods always represent challenges, as we can see.
The business has gone through significant disruptions on account of the pandemic. And we have, of course, seen the recovery being very swift as well as very strong. But given the outlook at this point in time and the economic uncertainties that we're seeing on account of what's happening in Europe, what's happening in China, and so on and so forth, that doesn't seem to have muted demand in any way at this point in time. IAG has upped its profit forecast for the full year, so things looking strong from a consumer perspective.
Yes, but I think what we're seeing as well is, of course, people really appreciate the value of travel. And when people couldn't travel for more than 2 years, there is a lot of pent-up demand, and we've just got to see how far that pent-up demand takes us. I think you've got to be very vigilant about the economic cycle. The one thing I would say as well, though, is the industry is heading into whatever comes our way, probably with a lot less capacity than it would have done coming off the top of a typical economic cycle, because everybody's still rebuilding. And I think the kind of the dynamics between supply and demand, in the next 2 or 3 years will be different to what you would expect if you go into, tougher economic times historically.
You're right in pointing that out. But, given the fact that we're likely to see capacity not matched supply at this point in time or demand at this point in time, the need for agility and how you're sort of rewiring things, reorienting things within the company from a people point of view, from a technology point of view, just to be prepared in case we deal with any future shocks.
Yeah, of course, and I think the aviation industry, understands that, because we've been through so many, forms of crisis in the last 25 years. We are nothing if not resilient. So I think we're very vigilant. I think we've got to manage our businesses very carefully. But also, I think one of the things in the pandemic that we did learn was about agility. And, we turned our airline into a cargo airline, more or less, in the space of 3 months. And actually, India was a very important market for cargo operations. And we were able to kind of move into spaces where demand was there and come out of spaces where it wasn't very quickly. So I think, the muscle memory of being quick and agile will serve us well as we head into whatever the future holds.
That's an interesting example that you gave us, and I think many airlines in India also experimented with this transition on the cargo side, especially when the restrictions were in force. But what are the other adjacencies that you believe you could explore, in the future that make sense for you strategically as an airline?
Well, I think if I look at us as a group, we have developed a group loyalty platform, and we have a currency called Avios, and actually we now have Iberia, British Airways and Aer Lingus all use that currency, and Qatar Airways are using that currency. So we think kind of, winning hearts and minds of customers through strong loyalty programs is a very, very exciting opportunity for us to develop. So a strong cargo business, I think a very strong loyalty business, and of course, never losing sight of the fundamentals of flying planes to places people want to travel to. And, they would be our key focus areas at the minute if we look at both British Airways and International Airlines Group.
So coming back to India, the next 5 years, how do you anticipate the role that British Airways is likely to play in the Indian aviation market? Well,
I think it's very exciting, because I think we look at our mission, our purpose is to connect Britain with the world and the world with Britain. And if you look at the ambition to double trade between India and the UK, in the next 10 years, we want to be very much part of that. And we think, air services play a critical role in enabling it. So we want to be, at the front of expanding service. We'll have the fleet and the product, and I think the history of serving the market, which we think is a strong advantage. But it's very exciting, and
so
that's why I'm here this week.
5 cities could be what?
Well, I think it's got potential, to be more cities. Look, we fly to 31 cities in the United States. 15 years ago, we probably flew to about 22. So, we've increased our footprint in the United States by a third over the last 10 years. We'd love to look at sort of those kind of opportunities in India. But I don't have specifics yet, but, I would be disappointed if we don't see those kind of opportunities come along.
Speaking of opportunities and from a people perspective as well, how significant is India going to be? How significant is this call center going to be in being able to allow you to operate globally to the standards that you wish to?
Well, I think, India is the biggest market for employment in British Airways outside of the United Kingdom. And that's, representative of the size of the network we have here, but also I think representative of the kind of talent and capability we can, attract and employ in the market. So it's been very inspiring to meet the teams here. The capability, the energy, the enthusiasm and the passion is something that I love, and it really gives us a lift when we go back home. So, I think India's got huge potential in terms of its human capital, and again, we want to be part of making sure that British Airways can access that human capital and that human potential.
And I want to go back to the global picture, because especially as far as aviation is concerned, the one big thing that is not in your control is oil prices, and you can't do anything about that. But what are the other cost levers at this point in time? You talked about digitization and what you're hoping to do there to bring in efficiency. What are the other significant cost levers that you haven't yet fully addressed and you hope to be able to eke out more from?
Well, I think, one of the things that will help is as we begin to rebuild and grow, because airlines tend to be heavily operationally geared. And I think when you get your capacity back to pre-pandemic levels and probably fly to the extent that you would like to, that has a big benefit in unit costs. I think you also have to look at ways in which, you can make sure you're investing in the things that customers do really value, but not invest in the things they don't. So I think the customer experience has got to be something which is a constant cycle of continuous improvement. But also,
so what's the feedback telling you? What do customers want at this point in time that you're focusing on?
Well, I think the first thing that we offer is a fantastic direct network. Out of the UK, we fly to more cities and destinations directly than anybody else. And that's a hugely important competitive advantage because it gives us, I think, convenience. Secondly, I think they want to be empowered more to control their journey through digital experiences. And we have a very, very big investment program to make a step change there. I think thirdly, it's about consistent delivery. And, we need to make sure that time and time again when people fly with us, what they experience is a service that matches their expectations continuously and consistently, and I think that requires a lot of discipline and a lot of focus by everybody in the company.
Yes, I would imagine. One of the, of course, challenges as well as the opportunities for the aviation industry globally is sustainability and moving towards the goals as far as sustainability is concerned. I know India has expressed reservations on moving to sustainable fuel by 2050, and the experience for different countries could be different, is India's point of view, and that should be factored in. How do you read the transition at this point in time?
Well, I think, one thing I would say, we've always been very ambitious on this transition, and IAG was the first company to commit to net zero by 2050. We were the first group to commit to 10% SAF by 2030. And we've already signed up a lot of SAF deals to make sure that we can meet those commitments. I think what we do need, collectively, is to make sure that we have enough supply, because I think SAF is not going to be the only answer for sustainability, but it's going to be a very important one. I think we also need, obviously, to have carbon offset and carbon capture programs that we invest in, and I think the industry's been the first to kind of self-regulate in the form of CORSIA. But also we need to make sure that we're investing in new technologies. And we've invested in a company that is developing hydrogen capability, but I think that's more of a longer-term solution. But if we're going to meet these ambitions by 2050, we need SAF, but SAF isn't the only answer.
If SAF isn't the only answer, one, of course, you talked about the supply constraints as far as SAF itself is concerned. How do you see that playing out over the next few years? And specifically in terms of other answers, you talked about hydrogen, and India is hoping to be the leader as far as green hydrogen is concerned, for instance. What could the other answers be? Well,
I think hydrogen plays a role, obviously, in terms of SAF production. But other answers, I think, could be, as you say, hydrogen for short-haul travel. But also I think, there is an onus on the manufacturers, whether it's Airbus and Boeing or General Electric and Rolls-Royce, to continue to develop the existing technologies, so that we make planes, such as long-haul aircraft, that may not be hydrogen ready in the near term, as efficient as we can. And I think we'll watch with interest, what the next evolution of wide-body aircraft is, because we should be seizing the opportunity to make sure that we transform the efficiency of those type of planes as well.
So, as CEO today, what would you consider as being the big risks that you're factoring in, as well as the big opportunities, at least in the near term for the year ahead?
Well, look, I think the opportunities are we continue to rebuild and we continue to modernise and invest, and that's very exciting for everybody at British Airways. I think as an airline you're always looking at the cycle, and always I think what we need to make sure is that we get the right regulation and the right frameworks to make sure that we can, deliver on our commitments for sustainability, because the industry takes it very seriously. I think it's very committed to self-help, and I think we need global frameworks that are applied consistently to make sure that it's a level playing field in getting to that net zero target by 2050.
Well, Sean, it's been an absolute pleasure. We wish you the very best of luck with your plans here in India, and of course with your plans globally as well, and we look forward to hearing more from you about what you intend to do here in India in terms of expansion over the next few years.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Appreciate you joining us. Well, that is it on this edition of the Global Dialogue. From all of us here on the team, for now, goodbye. Thanks for watching. Do stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. The news continues.